So I came across a video on YouTube where a teacher quit. She quit the job because she was complaining that none of her students in high school knew how to do basic comprehension, reading, or writing. She issued a homework assignment. She would do this every week where students had to write a paragraph, which a paragraph is minimum 3, but really it's 5, sometimes more sentences. And many of the students didn't know how to do that. So, for context, I I graduated high school in 2003, okay? And I'm 41 years old. I graduated high school in 2003. And, writing assignments was a regular thing. We had to read books, sometimes, we had to do a book report. It would be, it takes a couple months, I had we either had a block schedule, 4 classes, or we had periods where we had 7 classes. But anyway, we'd have books about this thick, and we'd have to read this book, and we would have to write a paper, like 1,000-word paper on it, okay? And at the time, 1,000 words, well, that's a lot of words, man. In high school, we're like, oh my God, it's 1,000. It sounds a lot. But when you read the book and you start writing, it's actually not that bad. And that's several paragraphs too, by the way. But she's saying that students couldn't write one paragraph. And she's not the only one. I've heard this from several other people, that high school students today, the Gen Z high school students, can't do basic things. They can't fix their, they can't change the oil in their car, change the tire. And I'm not speaking about all of them. Obviously, there's a lot of individuals that can do all these things. And of course, it varies. It depends on what school you're talking about. It depends on socioeconomic background. It depends a lot on the parents, by the way. So, I've noticed this, and there's a lot of other components that go into this. But there was a movie called Idiocracy that was made a couple decades ago, where it's a dystopia. It's sort of a comedy / dystopia where a man went into the future, and he was living sort of in the dark ages because everybody had gotten so stupid. And, it's supposed to be a comedy, but it's actually kind of scary too, because that's a potential future, that people can get so stupid that civilization basically just collapses. And that appears to be kind of what's going on a little bit. There's so many tangents I could take this. Real quick, somebody did an analysis of presidential speeches, and the speeches of, say, Thomas Jefferson, the speeches of Abraham Lincoln, the speeches of Franklin Roosevelt, the speeches of John F. Kennedy, the speeches of Barack Obama and Donald Trump. And then progressively, by generation, they got more and more dumbed down. And it's to the point now where if you listen to Trump or even Obama, it's like the level of like a 5th grader. Like someone from elementary school could understand that, or at least that's the proficiency level. Way back in the day, today, if Thomas Jefferson was to give a presidential speech, he's speaking in terms of somebody with like a master's degree would understand. And when I say master's degree, somebody that's very seriously educated, someone who's read a lot of books, have done a lot of writing, and has a very sharp mind and knows how to use it, would understand Thomas Jefferson, whereas people below that would not understand it. And the trend is that people are actually getting dumber and dumber. Okay, so it's pretty scary, and I'll link, in my description below, the link to this video of this teacher ranting and raving. And by the way, she's not speaking in clear, proper English like I'm speaking to you, which is another interesting thing. And again, it just shows the generational decline, generation by generation, the intellectual decline that is happening. But why it's so important? Well, if people don't have something called self-efficacy, in other words, if they don't believe that they are capable of changing their environment in a way that suits them, if they cannot use their mind to change their environment in a way that suits them, they're going to be prone to doing all sorts of things that are destructive, like committing crimes, like they're more likely to be dishonest, right? If you can't live honestly, obviously, people are more inclined to be dishonest. They're going to vote for government overreach, for the government to take care of them. They're going to look toward other authorities, cults or whatever, that give them the promise of being taken care of in some way because they don't believe they can take care of themselves, because they don't know how to, because they don't know how to think at all to begin with. You can't know how to think unless you got the basic components. That's basic logic, which you learn in math. That's just basic algebra. Comprehension skills. So that's reading comprehension. And then writing, that's communication. You think like you talk. So if you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to think straight either. That is very worrying. And I think the root of the problem is actually probably inside the home. It's probably the parents. It's probably bad parenting. But our schools, I would recommend implementing like corporal punishment. In other words, way back in the day, they used to take paddles and they used to whip people's behinds or hit them in the back of the wrist with a paddle if they were acting up. You would enforce a certain level of discipline that way. And also I would focus academically on the things that I just mentioned. Basic math, reading and writing as per communication and comprehension skills and logical, learning how to think critically. And of course you can have your history, and then you can have your physical education. That's, as I say, a healthy body is a healthy mind. But it's not good. It's not good at all. And I hope this video actually reaches people and people actually think about it. And, my recommendations, I hope they get popular, but it's very sad to see this.